Hello and thank you for attending this hopefully will be helpful video, amazing video, fruitful video, as my goal in this training is to get those who are managers, those who run the logistics and oversee the management of other staff to meet the leader's vision. So the leader, typically the superintendent, or it could be a principal or assistant superintendent of a school district or of a school. And it depends on if you're in a private school, public school, how big your school district is or your school. But regardless, the leader has a vision or an inspiration. We also sometimes call a mission. It is communicated to the managers. We're talking department heads, supervisors, coordinators. And that's what we're going to focus on right this second. Are those people who are managing the moving parts as well as other staff that are below them that they oversee, which are often teachers, guidance counselors, child study team members, etc. These managers of all these moving parts are so critical to the process, because the process is based on these managers being able to multitask, plan, coordinate, and communicate a number of things to get the process to meet the visionary's goals, the leader's vision, the leader's mission. So how does that get done? Well, I have explained in other videos that the leader has to hire the right people to manage. It's like any business. If you don't have the right managers, you're really going to find yourself in trouble. And I use this example commonly, but someone could be a great professional athlete, but it doesn't mean that they would be a great professional coach in that same sport. Because now you're not caring for yourself, you're not thinking independently, you're now having to care for other people. It's a team management. You could be an amazing human being who are, those who are watching this video, and you could be the kindest, most respectful person in the world. That doesn't mean that you would be a great parent. It doesn't mean you would be the most responsible parent, because it has to do with caring for yourself, of course, but then managing the care for others. So these are very special people who should be chosen for management. When someone, and just because someone has been in a school system for a long time and maybe has a stellar performance, doesn't necessarily mean that they are the perfect fit for a management position. They would have to be able to demonstrate that they've managed things before. They've managed teams, they've managed committees, they've managed something within the society. They have done something that is on a team structure where they had some form of oversight. Now with that, they also have to have great organizational skills, time management skills, team leadership or management skills as it relates to inspiring people, motivating people, holding people accountable. There's a lot that goes into being a manager of others. So when we think about that in education, it really it all comes down to the culture that you're in, the climate that you're in, and the leader's vision that you're in. When we're deciding what are those very specific elements that a manager should possess, so we know that they're the right fit for the needs of the school or school district and the trade. So with that, managers in education have to be two things, and it has to be a balance of the two. People productive and deadline productive. So when you think about people productive, we're talking about that humane, creative, connectable side. When we talk about deadline productive, we're talking about data, statistics, deadlines. We're talking about grades, curriculum, and things of that nature that are more maybe mathematical or quantitative, even though there is still a qualitative value. People who are unbalanced in that, they are more people productive than they are maybe deadline productive, can fumble the ball and accidentally have a lot of people that love them and want to work for them because they're inspiring, but then they can't hold people accountable because they're afraid of making enemies. They're afraid of upsetting people, or they're doing a good job not upsetting people and keeping people happy, but they lose sight of the goals of what the deadlines are. So now we're late in lesson planning and things that have to do with curriculum development, or students making certain levels of improvement of academic achievement, etc. This can also go the other way. They're great with the academics. People are making meaningful and responsible improvements, but people are not satisfied with this manager. They don't like him or her, or they're not inspired by him and her. They don't feel like they feel that they're wrongly held accountable by him and her. So this balance is really what makes what's called team efficacy. And we have to interview people to make sure they have a balance of both of those. If we have an unbalance or imbalance of that, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. So our interviews should include a number of different cool, relatable, creative details that can accurately measure what a person is able to bring to your school or school district in managing people productivity and deadline productivity simultaneously. Now, we also have to think about what are these measurement tools to make sure that the managers are accurately managing. So the managers have all kinds of measurement tools for everybody else, but leaders have to be able to measure their managers. So the leaders have to have all types of tools in place to make sure the managers are getting to the leader's vision. The vision can be inspiring, and it should be inspiring because it motivates the managers to push, right? But at the same token, the leaders need to meet with the managers, and the managers, you have to be ready to be measured. These measurements have to be ongoing so we can check with benchmarks to make sure you're on track to meet our goals as leaders, so that we know you're on track to get to where we want you to be. Where if our managers are where as leaders we want you to be, we are meeting the details, the deadlines of our vision. So with that, we have to think of means of accountability. Managers have to be ready to be held accountable by the leaders of their school and school district without issue. If managers struggle themselves to be held accountable for the measurements that they are delivering to their leaders, that is going to be a problem. So in those interviews and when we're hiring people, personal accountability becomes critical. The problem and the reason why I bring this up is managers who are managing departments are so used to measuring other people's accountability, they sometimes forget that they are also held accountable. And the accountability should be spelled out way up front so everyone knows exactly what the expectations are of them as managers, department heads, coordinators, or supervisors. And then as managers, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to share with you is you want to ask for, you have to continue to be trained. We want the most recent tools on how to manage people. It's human behavior. There is a very strong behavioral science component to being a really good manager. So although that is one category of being a good manager, we saw people productive and deadline productive, but on the people productive, we have to be able to study and understand and be able to manipulate the behaviors of others, not just the children who are at the bottom hierarchical chart, but also the people who are overseeing our children, which is the ones that we manage. Now remember, here's a really good, important principle for everybody. And leaders, you really have to think about this when you're watching this video. Managers were once the people that they managed. So people, let's say teachers, a teacher might have started off as an assistant. So the assistant was going to college, the teacher assistant was going to college to get the credits, to then pass the praxis, to get the license to become a teacher. Now, the teacher used to be an assistant, but the teacher is now overseeing other assistants who used to be that teacher. That teacher was an assistant who is now supervising assistants. Now the teacher, 10 years down the road, applies to be a department head of, let's say, the science department. So was an assistant, now a science teacher, now is looking to become the department head of science. So now the department head is now overseeing the people who that teacher, that department head used to be, who's also overseeing who that teacher used to be when the teacher was also an assistant. So we are overseeing these layers of what we had to achieve in order to become those managers. But we have to make sure that we remember that where we were when we were striving to become a manager. And although we might have had great efficacy and success in getting to that position, we have to make sure that we are in our hearts right for that position. We don't have a right to be a manager for that department just because we were a great teacher in that department. It doesn't give us a right. We have to qualify for that. So ongoing training is critical, and understanding human behavior is critical. And even if you understood children's behavior in a class, now you have to understand adult behavior as a department head or as a supervisor. So as managers, we have to remember that we are managing adult human behavior, which is maybe the teachers that you're overseeing, who are overseeing other adults' human behavior, maybe the assistants, who are overseeing children's behavior as well. So when we are looking at managers, we have to say to ourselves, am I a person who can manage these logistics? Am I a person who can manage all of the related data and details that are deadline driven? Because every year I'm on a goal set by backward design continuum for everyone who's in my department. And can I handle accountability with my staff? Can I handle hiring the right staff? Do I have the tools to pick the right staff? Do I have the tools to handle people who are not happy with the decisions I make? And can I make sure that I don't just hire people who I'm friendly with and be too people productive, because I don't want to let anyone down? And can I handle and manage the integrity of my department? Because when my department is not doing well, only I, as a manager, am held accountable for the lack of productivity or lack of achievement that my department has experienced. And I have to hold myself and take 100% accountability of my department's performance. But yet when my department does so well and is super successful, I give all of the gratitude and all of this success to the people that work beneath me, because they are really the ones who got this job done following, my management tools. Without them, I would have never, or my department would have never met the goals that we set forth or the expectations I stowed upon them. So, in summary, is everyone wired and meant to be a manager? No. And should we be hiring very specific people to be managers of our departments? Yes. And are the managers supposed to be good direction followers of the leader's vision and mission? Yes. We can't have managers that are not willing to follow directions first time asked. And doesn't matter what the manager's vision is, they have to follow the leader's vision. That communication should happen during the interview, right? And then lastly, we have to make sure when we're hiring managers, or if you're looking to become a manager, that you're willing to give credit to the people who manage the logistics for you, that are in charge of your charge. That's really what you're doing. You're in charge of other people, but there are people who are in charge of what your department is in charge of. So we have to take care of them, but we also have to hold them responsible. Not an easy thing to do. Not everyone's ready for that task. Not everyone is going to be meant to be able to handle those types of conditions. And we always have to make sure that we're hiring the right people to fill these positions, or only our children fail. Only our children will suffer the most. So let's spin it on a positive. When we hire the right people and they're doing the right job and they're meeting the vision of our leaders as managers, then our children will thrive, not survive. They will build real wellness, resilience, and immunity. They will develop great frontal lobe function, and they will soon become independent people that we were responsible for creating. Thank you.